ask us or let us know if there's a problem that you're seeing. All right, so with no further ado, I'd like to do some quick introductions. Again, I'm Taylor Shanklin here. I do product marketing at Kimbia and have been working in the nonprofit tech space for quite a while, working with hundreds of organizations on online fundraising and peer-to-peer. Fundraising campaigns specifically is kind of my favorite thing to talk about. So I'm really excited about this today. But I want to hand it over to the other two stars of the show here today to introduce themselves as well. So Callie, how about we start with you?
Hi, my name is Callie Langford. I'm the Director of Communications at CASA of Travis County in Austin, Texas. We have been working on the CASA superhero run that we're going to talk about today for many years, from back when I was events manager to now being communications director, and I've been working with Kimbia for quite a while.
Great. Thank you so much, Callie.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry, you're up, Jamie.
Hi, everyone. This is Jamie from LeadPup. Yep, Jamie from LeadPup here. So LeadPup helps organizations find and cultivate new supporters who will give more and raise more for their cause. And myself, I do, along with some brand development, I'm the analyst. So I'm the guy behind the numbers for this study, as well as for our LeadPup clients. So my goal is to ensure that all of our recommendations are really supported by the data. It's been a pleasure to dive into this study, and thanks, Callie, for kind of opening the curtain for us, and I hope you all find it valuable today.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so real quick, we want to just hear a little bit about you and run a couple of polls and questions real quick. So let me get those started. We just want to know a little bit more about you. And I actually, in my poll, only had a multiple choice option. But I want to just kind of understand a little bit in terms of roles and responsibilities who's here. So go ahead and just let us know, which department or role do you work in at your organization? All right, just a couple more seconds and then I'll close out that one. Good deal. It's interesting to always see the mix of, the different types of roles and responsibilities that we have here on the phone. All right, so just for your interest, we've got 39% of you say marketing and communications related, 34% are development, 0% are IT, 14% executive, and 14% in some other department. Cool. Well, thanks a lot for sharing that with us. And then we also want to know, who of you have hosted a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign or event before? I'm going to open up the poll to that one. And go ahead and let us know if you've hosted any sort of peer-to-peer fundraiser campaign or event. Looks like it's almost even. All right, 1, 2, and I'm going to close out that one. So 54% of you said yes, that you have, and 46% said no. So great. So welcome those who are trying to learn more about peer-to-peer fundraising and what it takes to sort of get something off the ground. And then welcome to those of you who are veterans and just looking for some additional insight on what some others are doing. Okay, so what we want to talk about today, and I'm going to hand it over to Callie to talk a bit more about her organization and their event, is we really said, okay, what does the role of social media actually play in peer-to-peer fundraising? I think there's, a lack of data in this department right now in our sector, in our industry. And so we said, well, let's start analyzing this and take a look and see if it's something where we can actually tie, increased engagement to peer-to-peer fundraising on social media or not. So with that being said, Callie, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk a little bit more about your organization and the peer-to-peer event that you guys do.
Thank you, Taylor. So I work with CASA of Travis County. We are kind of the local Austin affiliate of the National CASA organization. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, which is a complicated acronym. But we work with children in the Child Protective Services system. We provide trained volunteers that are kind of speaking up for the needs of these kids, particularly what's in their best interest, to hopefully help them, go home or find an adoptive family or whatever their needs may be. We're trying to help them get there as quickly as possible and ultimately give a volunteer to every child in our local system that needs one. Because we're dealing with child abuse and neglect, these are very heavy topics. And so we, over the years, have really worked to kind of infuse as much joy as possible into what is a really challenging topic. And so we really like to think about painting pictures of success. And many years ago, someone came to us with this idea for a superhero race. We were already doing a pretty generic 5K. And someone came to us with this idea, and he said, every child needs a hero, but abused children need superheroes. And we ran with it, and we loved it. And over the years, we've sort of grown the theme even more, where we talk about Superman being adopted, and Batman raised by the butler, and Spider-Man raised by his aunt and uncle, and how superheroes don't come from traditional family backgrounds, but they grow up to be superhero adults. And that's our goal for every child in the foster care system, no matter what they've been through. So that's what we do. We do this huge race. This past year was 3,350 participants here in Austin, with a couple of other local CASA programs that are involved. And we do a 5K, we do a kids 1K, and a huge part of the fundraising process is the peer-to-peer fundraising that we ask our participants to do. And they do it really well, and they get really involved and very creative. And the superhero theme brings that lightness and success and joy to our tough topic of conversation, and brings a lot of success as people are sort of posting about their superpowers and sharing their costume plans and doing all this stuff to raise money for our organization via peer-to-peer online with Kimbia, which we've used since 2013. And then, Taylor, do we want to go to the slide with the numbers so I can explain some of the difference in that?
Yeah, is there a lag? Do you see it now?
I do not. I see the who are you. Am I behind?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying too, Taylor. I think we might be a little bit behind.
I think we're a little bit behind. Okay, let's just give it a second to catch it up. We're having a little bit of difficulty today here with our go-to meeting room. So let me know when you guys see it.
Sure. I can further explain that the superhero run for us is definitely a fundraiser. It's our second largest in terms of the money we make for the events that we host. It is our largest in terms of participation. So beyond fundraising, it's really a very huge awareness raising event for us to help us recruit volunteers and get people more engaged with the cause of fighting child abuse and neglect. And so, I think that part of that peer-to-peer aspect of not only are we making money, but people are telling their friends about this organization in the process, and that's a huge part of it, the success for us.
Great. Are you seeing the slides yet?
No.
Okay, I'm going to try something real quick.
We're not. Can you try advancing them, maybe advance them through with the arrows in the bottom corner?
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to just try to stop sharing my screen real quick and then just try to share it again. So hang on, folks. Sorry, guys. Okay, let me know now if you can see I'm on the...
That did work.
There we go. Okay, now I've got the graph up. Do you see the graph?
Yes,
we do.
Great. All right. Okay, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, so the numbers that we saw kind of right before this, that we actually were able to provide data on was from specifically CASA of Travis County. We do this event with 2 other CASA programs, but we shared the data from our specific program and for the past 4 years, so 2013 through 2016, anyone who was a registrant or donor for our program. And then you can see kind of the growth that we've had over the years in terms of this event and its success.
Awesome. Yeah, this was, Kelly and I met up last week, and, you know, I was really excited to see, I was like, I'd like to see your numbers if you don't mind sharing them with me over the last several years, because she and her colleague were talking about how much it's grown. And then I saw it and I was like, wow, that's really amazing how much amazing growth that you've had. So really excited about what you guys do with this event. Okay, well, with that, let's hand it over to, we are going to switch gears now and actually hand it over to Jamie to have him get into the logistics of the study and the analysis and go through what we found.
Thanks, Taylor. So before we jump into the numbers, I want to do a quick review of some of the terms that we're going to use regarding the event. So as we dive into the study, everyone can track along. As you can see here, we have kind of 4 different buckets that we can put all of the participant data that we studied in and all of the participants themselves. So when we say register, that's anyone who's registered to run or walk in the 5K event or the Kids 1K race. So donation or a donor, that is anyone, whether they are a race registrant or not, that has just given a tax-deductible gift to support CASA. Raise, so that's the event when someone participates in peer-to-peer fundraising through the Kimbia platform. So they're securing donations on behalf of CASA for this superhero run. They're the ones that are often bringing in real donation dollars. And finally, participant, that is the largest bucket. These all fall into that. So that's any individual affiliated with the superhero run as a donor, a registrant, a raiser, or maybe all of the above. So now let's jump into the data.
Oh, wait, we've got one more poll. But first, there's a poll. I want to hear what you guys, I thought that might be the case, Taylor. No, first I want to hear what you guys think. So before we actually show you what we found with doing the study on CASA's run, what do you think? Do you think social media engagement influences fundraising dollars? Let's let you tell us what you think. Okay. That poll should be launched. So just tell us, we have simple answers, yes, maybe, no. All right, getting a lot of yeses and some maybes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out that poll now. We had 77% of you say yes, 23% say maybe, and 0% of you say no. So, all right, now with that being said, Jamie, let's hear what you found.
Right, so as we know, social media is this great tool that we want to leverage for our peer-to-peer fundraising, and our poll certainly reflects that. It turns out, though, just being on social media is not enough. So social media has become so prevalent that we can't exactly use it to predict who will and who will not perform as donors and fundraisers. Essentially, everyone's on there, and in this study, we were able to find social media profiles for 28% of our participants. So everyone's on there. So it's not necessarily unique, but that said, this also proves that your supporters are on social media. So as an organization, you definitely should be there too. So now let's dive into a little bit of our findings more specifically.
Can you see the next slide?
Do social users give? Yep.
Okay,
perfect.
great.
So do social media users give more often? That is, do they give to your organization through this event at a higher frequency? Before I walk through the numbers, let's look about these 4 networks that we studied. So we looked at LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Clout. And the reason we use these is that these were the four most prominent ones, and these were the ones that had a large enough population on their networks to be representative of our entire data sample as a whole. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter we're all pretty familiar with. Clout was the one that was a little bit surprising, and for anyone that hasn't come across Clout before, Clout is a network that basically provides a score and a rating for people across all social media profiles. It's sort of an influencer score. So the higher Clout score, the more influence someone has, in theory, on social media. So do the social media users give more often? We had to say no. There is not statistically significant evidence to show that, at least with our data sample. So, however, do note that all these rates, so 10.4% of our participants also donated. And if you look in the orange box, all those rates are higher than 10.4%. So, and any direct mail folks on here are maybe saying, hey, that's a couple percentage points. That's pretty impressive. Unfortunately, with our data set, we can't necessarily make that assumption. With more data, maybe we can, but as for right now, unfortunately, no. We can say the social media active give maybe slightly more often, but not enough that we can really make this recommendation. And perhaps further research can maybe reveal more. So this leads us to the next question. Do the social media users raise more often? So across all participants, 13.6% of them participated in peer-to-peer fundraising. Now let's jump to the orange box again. And do they raise at a more often rate? Once again, these rates were just slightly higher for the social media active, perhaps a bit more so with LinkedIn, emphasizing maybe the effectiveness of fundraising in a workplace setting. That said, with our data set, no, we cannot conclude that users of these networks raise more often. So now let's look at one more stat. How can we use social media to predict our effectiveness, who's going to perform for our peer-to-peer fundraisings? So we even checked if more prominent users of social media made for better fundraisers. So that is a supporter social media audience indicative of a better fundraiser for your organization? And once again, unfortunately, we have to say no. So as you can see here, all the correlation coefficients are near 0. We were hoping for these to be at 0.5 or above. This would confirm that, for example, more social profiles means a more effective fundraiser, more Twitter followers means a more effective fundraiser, or a higher clout score, perhaps a bigger influencer, also means that person's going to be a more effective fundraiser. Unfortunately, as you can see, all these numbers are pretty close to 0. So at this point, you're probably asking, why are we here? Taylor, if you want to advance that. So yeah, why are we here? Social media active don't donate or raise more, and we can't even rely on the loudest of our social media users to raise more. Well, all of our results so far are not statistically significant. And here's the thing, none of our tests reached statistical significance. However, if you're interested, listeners and anyone watching the replay of this webinar, we'd love to grow this study, perhaps proving that the slight increase in donation raise rates that we just saw is in fact a very significant amount, just like how direct mailers may be very impressed by that 2%. With more data, we may be able to confirm that. So once again, why are we here? Well, these next few slides show some findings that, p-values aside, we did feel comfortable using for recommendations based on our collective team's many years of experience in fundraising. So let's see what I mean. Let's go back to the data. So do social media users give more? Across all 4 relevant networks that we looked at, was the average gift for social media users higher in this study? Yes, in fact, consistently at about double. Even when we removed gifts of over $1,000, which often in fundraising are not attributed to the specific campaign's metrics. The thought behind that is gifts over $1,000 perhaps represent a supporter who maybe would have given that $1,000 regardless of your specific campaign efforts. These are often your very loyal supporting champions. So even over $1,000, yes, the social media active actually do give more dollars. And this begs the next question. Do the social media active raise more? Once again, yes. So this time our spread, if you look in the orange box, isn't quite as consistent at double, but across all participants, the average person who did participate in peer-to-peer fundraising raised $123 on CASA's behalf. Now if you jump into the orange box, you can see that the Facebook group raised, on average, when they did participate in fundraising, $263, all the way up to the LinkedIn group, who they raised $307 on average on CASA's behalf. So across all four networks, our raise amounts were at least double. In fact, the data that I'm showing you here, this is actually without the fundraisers who brought in over $1,000. As these folks, the superstar fundraisers, really skewed our numbers. We wanted to show you here with these that this trend held true even without them. So the last piece is what's our takeaway from these numbers? Well, the good news is social media does work. So the social media active may not donate or raise more often. It's not at a higher frequency that it's happening, but when they do, they make for better donors and fundraisers. They make for better donors is what we think is explaining this is some peer pressures that are happening around their giving due to the social setting. And so this is exactly what social media is for and why we think it is a large driver of peer-to-peer fundraisers. And then as fundraisers, they are more effective fundraisers simply because they have the tools to reach a crowd. So now there's a couple more things that we wanted to look at with this data set. Those were kind of our big hypotheses, but were there anything else, any other stats that we could find that were interesting? Turns out absolutely. So I'm going to cover these points that you can see now, bottom to top, starting with the median gift. So the median gift, the average Joe gave $25. That's sort of what you can expect. And we use median here as that's a bit more of a better number representative of the population, as some of our superstar donors tend to skew the data. Now if we move on to the raise rate, that second bullet, so the raise rate was higher than the give rate. And this really speaks to the effectiveness of peer-to-peer fundraising as a tool to empower your supporters. So while by a slim margin, it's pretty interesting to note that someone was a participant in this event was more likely to actually fundraise on CASA's behalf than they were to give their own dollars. And finally, to this top point, which you'll hear more from Taylor and Callie coming up, but superstar fundraisers play a huge role. So in this event, we looked at like 4 years of data, and just 33 people brought in 46.5% of the nearly $200,000 raised in peer-to-peer fundraising here. Among these 33 superstars, the average raise amount was $2,313. So if you remember, the average person brought in $123 on CASA's behalf. That's pretty impressive. It's really impressive when you look at these 33 who each on average brought in $2,313. So that's it for the numbers for now, and I'll hand it back to Taylor and Callie with some concrete takeaways for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie, for going over that and going through that, and thanks for all the work on the analysis. I do think it's interesting to look at, what we found in this data set at least is that the frequency is not as much of a, indicator of success, right? But the actual amount is. So interesting. For those of you who, like Jamie said, I mean, this is, I think, kind of the beginning of something that we both would like to study more and to think about more. So, and I do think that it's something that we'll probably see more data come out in the market, right, over time as social data becomes easier to get at, right? So anyhow, stay tuned if you guys are interested in talking to us about doing more around the study too. Reach out. We'd love to chat with you. So I want to talk about and kind of chat with Callie now about a couple of things that we talked about last week and some tips and tricks that she and her team have picked up and used to grow their event. And one thing that Jamie just touched upon was, about the kind of like those rock stars that you have, right? They're the small minority that raises the majority of the fundraising dollars. And so what does it look like to nurture them? And how is that different than other participants who are maybe raising $100? So Callie, let's sort of banter here and talk a little bit about what you guys have done to grow your event. If you're thinking about, okay, I want to keep my participants engaged and coming back year over year, what works? What's been working for you guys over there at CASA and the superhero run? Maybe you can talk through some of the things that have worked for you guys.
So as you'll see, and I think one of the upcoming slides, kind of the year that the superhero theme hit, it really changed a whole lot for our event. When I started in 2008, it was the Speak Up for Kids 5K, and in a city that's already flush with plenty of running events, it was boring, and it was not doing it for the crowd that, to get people to it. But the minute we started with this superhero theme, it really changed the game for us. We've become a very known event. People really enjoy it. They've made it into a tradition when they can for their families. And, in the same process, because it's so visual, we get more media in attendance. We get more people posting on social media during the event or leading up to it because everything's so fun to take pictures of. So I think that the theme was a huge important thing to be able to stand out in a really saturated market and to just make sure that people have a really fantastic time at the event. If you do nothing at the 5K but run and look at costumes, you'll be very happy because it's adorable. It's fun to see. So that's a huge part of it. And I think then at the same time, as I talked before, especially when, we're a nonprofit working with a theme that's really tough and also sort of inaccessible to a lot of people, it's hard to kind of imagine why child abuse should be a cause you necessarily should concern yourself with, because it's not something we can kind of imagine happening in our own family or our own neighborhood. It's sort of always far from us. So the fact that we were able to do this theme that, one, connects the kids and the cause to people and keeps it uplifting and fun and success focused has been, really, really important. I think those two things have been incredibly helpful in moving the event forward over the years.
Awesome. And I love what you guys said about, too, success is intoxicating. I think that, when you're thinking about asking your fundraisers to make that first ask, right? The first ask can be scary, but then once you make it and you get a friend or two donating to you, it kind of is like, oh, well, that wasn't so hard, and that can be intoxicating, right? So I think making it as easy as possible, right, to make that ask.
Exactly, and I think that's part of what Kimbia has helped us do. Is it's easy to get started, and then once you get started and you think it's kind of fun, it really grows from there. We have, Jamie heard the story of one of our participants many, many years ago who was looking for something to do, thought maybe I'll raise $250. He managed to do that on like the first day with a Facebook post. And after that, he was like, well, what else can I do? And he grew it many, many years to, raising thousands upon thousands of dollars for us. And he now is an employee of our agency because he fundraised so much for us over the years. But he really talked about how it was exciting to just do that little first bit. Okay, well, where else can I go with it? And so I think creating that entry point for people into this and just saying, oh yeah, that's not that hard to raise $100 or $500 or whatever it is that works for you, allows people to get really excited by what they're doing and want to push it even further and up their goals as they go along.
Yeah, I loved hearing Stephen's story.
Yeah, and I do think that making it easy is so important. We do focus on people when they sign up, they immediately get that $100 fundraising goal, and that's what we push for. Like it's first about that $100, and then lots of people soar far past that, and it's really exciting.
Awesome. So this is the slide about the kind of showing when the theme hit. Did you want to say anything more about this, Kelly?
Yeah, so I wanted to just share a few years where we kind of saw big jumps. So in 2010 was our first year with the superhero theme, and you'll see that our peer-to-peer went from around $7,000–8,000 in previous years to almost $20,000. So that was a big first year for us. Plus we started growing our registrants. In 2013, 2013 was the year we started using Kimbia. We were using Active Network prior to that, and we really wanted something embedded in our website, easy to sign up, no passwords, and we saw a huge jump. I think our peer-to-peer went up $20,000 in that year. You don't see much of a jump in the registration because we actually had a venue those 2 years that maxed us out, and we sold it out 2 years in a row, so we couldn't grow there, but our peer-to-peer grew in spite of having the same, if not actually fewer fundraisers and registrants from 2012 to 2013. So that was huge. And then in 2016, where we saw another very big jump both in registration and in fundraising, a huge part of that was that we'd hired this person who'd been doing peer-to-peer fundraising, and we brought him in and said, okay, support other people. Like we had someone dedicated to helping them. And at the same time, we did a lot to enhance the quality of the event. You'll see our numbers actually drop in 2014. We moved the event far out of town. It was a bad idea. And the quality of it was low due to a variety of factors. And so we had to work really hard to bring it back up in 2015. But then I think we reestablished trust in terms of this is a professional event. It's organized well. You can trust you're going to have fun and have a quality day. And so in 2016, we just saw things kind of soar, through the roof in a lot of different ways, and saw a lot of growth. So those were our sort of success years of growth from a couple of different factors.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really cool to hear your story and like what it was that made the difference each time you saw a big spike.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the types of incentives that you guys offer to your fundraisers. Like what gets them, and what has, since Stephen came on board, what has he been doing to incentivize people and get people to kind of shoot for the moon like he is, when maybe it was just in his personality and his nature to be that way, right? How do you incentivize people who are new to fundraising or new to your event?
So we do a lot of different levels. In terms of our incentives, as you see at the bottom, we have a $100 level. That's our first goal that we set for everyone. And if you raise $100, you get a nice tech tee. So not just a little, cotton runner t-shirt, but you get this kind of fancy, fun tech tee with a cool design. And that costs us, somewhere in the realm of $5. But we felt that's worth it for raising $100. So that's the basic thing. And we're always encouraging people to get there. Once you hit $500, you become what we call a CASA Crusader. You get a trophy, like an old school, I'm in elementary school, little star trophy, which adults for some reason really love. And you also get entered into a drawing, and you get listed on the website as a CASA Crusader, and so it's the next level. And then if you're in the top 3, which we're talking people in the $4,000 to $7,000 range of fundraising, then we have high-level prize packages that we offer that we've kind of found at that level that the people are not in it for the prizes. They are in it for like the intense love of the cause and a competitive attitude and a couple different things like that. So at that level, in order to kind of keep people going when they really don't care about, a spa package or a restaurant gift certificate, we really try to figure out, okay, what drives them? What What's keeping them going? What do they love? How do we need to interact with them? And then, we're calling and we're talking with them a lot. We're emailing, we're staying in touch, and we're trying to kind of just figure out what sort of their like positive triggers are to keep them moving forward. What do they need from us? Is there something we can offer to them to make it as easy as possible for them to keep going? And for a lot of people, it's the want to win. And a lot of people, it's just, I love this cause so much, I'm going to keep going. And so we figure that out and we really help them. And I think, the whole time helping them if they need to up that goal, whatever it is. And then throughout the process, we really do targeted communications based on what level you're at. So if we're sending a fundraising email out to registrants, it's going to say, hey, you haven't raised 100 yet, but when you do, you're going to get that tech tee for anyone who's under there. Or if you've raised 100, we're going to encourage you to get to that 500 mark, and here's what you get. If you're above that, you're going to get a very specific email talking about, you have the potential to be top 3. You're one of our superhero best fundraisers in the world. We get really gushy, but we target all of our communications around getting people at different levels to that next point and moving them up the ladder of fundraising.
Awesome. Love it. Love the examples. So with that being said, okay, so you guys have some rock stars. Hopefully you can see the animated GIF there of one of your rock stars. What do you guys do they are a little bit different, right? You've got to coach them in a different way, really develop a very personal relationship with them. What do you guys do, and what has worked for you?
Well, as you'll see on these little that are up here, one of the big things that we've done, and it was something we did with Stephen, who's now our staff member, but was once our superhero fundraiser for many years, is we encouraged him years ago to write a blog post, share his success, what were his tactics, tell his story. And we started doing that with lots of our other fundraisers over the years, or anyone who brings a big team or is really involved. We asked them to share their story, or we write a blog feature about them. And not only does it kind of encourage them the next year, to sort of support other people, but it helps hold them accountable to keep going, to do it again, because now we've made it public about their success last year and they better do it again this year. So we've found that that's been really helpful, is featuring their success, sharing, the success of fundraisers with other people and making it very public. We certainly will kind of pit people against each other in sort of positive, fun ways. I remember that our top fundraiser of the year raised a lot of money, and that Dana that you see, she was trying, but then the first one kind of got out of her path, and for a second we almost had her husband willing to match whatever she didn't make so she could get first place. So we're always encouraging whatever we can, and really kind of friendly competition between people. I've had husbands and wives that are both fundraising, and we'll sort of we'll get to know people, get to know where they're coming from, and if we can pit somebody against each other in a fun way, we certainly will. I think that helping them, it's allowing other participants to see how easy and fun it can be, giving them ideas for their fundraising techniques, and then, like we said, making it very public and very accountable to the people who have been our positive top fundraisers in the past. So we really get to know these people. And then on event day, they all come to the specific fundraising tent. They get to meet Stephen, who's been working with them. They get to pick up their tech tee or their prizes, and have a chance for us to thank them in person if we haven't yet. And then after the event, we're having coffee with all of these top fundraisers, the people that are in that kind of 500 and up range. We're going to meet with them, give them their trophy, give them their tech tee if we didn't see them at the race, and ask them about their feedback, and build that relationship for next year. So we really treat them, kind of like the major donors of the 5K world.
Awesome. So I love that. And I love how you have them share their story, and that some of them have been really open to doing that and writing the blog posts. I think that's great. Is there we have a question kind of like around milestones and that sort of thing. Is there anything else you guys do just kind of like publicly, other than sharing their story of some of those fundraising rock stars? I know you guys have the thermometers and scrollers and that sort of thing up on the website. Is there anything else you do to kind of like publicly recognize people for their fundraising milestones? Like if they, hit the 100 mark, or, you know, if they are one of the top fundraisers, do you guys do anything for them like at the event?
So usually at the event itself, we have not closed fundraising yet. We're still encouraging it, and we have had people walk up and say, "Where am I at on the list?" Okay, I'm calling and asking a friend for $1,000 right now. So we keep fundraising going even past, which is great because it keeps movement, you know, and it doesn't end everything that day. At the same time, we do not get to recognize fundraisers on stage at the event like we would like to. So we do, you know, big Facebook announcements. We put them on the website as part of the results. So on the same page that you're finding out, you know, which runners won, you're also finding out who are our top fundraisers, who are our top teams. We list all of the CASA Crusaders for the year. So they do get kind of public recognition in those ways. And when we can, we'll try to like make announcements about who are our top fundraisers so far at the event, just so that we can kind of keep competition going. So we like to share as much of that as possible and do kind of event announcements, you know, in email and social media after the event is over to share all of the success.
Awesome. Love it. And tell me a little bit about, you guys developed a really good toolkit. What did you put in your toolkit, and how did you get that out to people to help people?
So we have a whole set of resources on our webpage every year. It's part of our emails to fundraisers. It's something that Stephen will send out as he's working with individuals, but we've created specifically these superheroes guide to fundraising. And this is a whole document that we created in a kind of fun comic book style. It talks about different steps. Okay, if I want to hit $500, here's the math to get there. Here's how many gifts I might need. We make sort of suggestions on kind of a treasure map of who to find in your superhero network. Okay, I need to go to my coworkers, I need to go to my clubs, I need to go to my family, I need to go to my friends, sort of giving them ideas of who to ask. We make suggestions of how much to ask someone for, to get specific. One of the suggestions that we always make is, think about if you were going to go have dinner with your friend, where would y'all go and what would you spend there? Okay, ask them for that much money. If it's going to Chili's or Applebee's, what's that cost? If it's going to fine dining, what does that cost? That could be a great idea of how much to ask them for. So we include that, we include letter writing assistance, we include, just all our suggestions of kind of roadmaps to make whatever amount of money you want to make, whatever your goal is. We share that in our Superheroes Guide to Fundraising.
Awesome. And I love that it's up on your website. It's easy for people to download and find. And I really like that you have not just like suggested emails and letters, but you also have suggested social media posts in it as well, which I think is a really good thing to do, to help just give people, like I said, people who maybe aren't comfortable with the ask, like here's something that you can say, and then tailor it to your personal story as well.
Exactly. So we do offer on the site, and I think that's on the next slide, but we offer, we offer all of the messaging you might really need. You don't have to be creative. We're going to share it all with you. Here's the email, here's the Facebook post, here's the Twitter post. Whether you're recruiting or fundraising, whatever you decide to do, it's up there and available to every single participant. And then, most people do get really creative, and, we've seen the data here today, and when we look, we know that the people that are sending personal emails, and I know personally from my own fundraising that, those emails really matter and really drive that progress. And so we have every single thing you might possibly need to fundraise ready to go to be personalized and click send.
Awesome. Even with like the social posts, like having it written out with all of the correct hashtags that you want to use and tags and all of that and stuff is good to point people in the right direction. So I love your toolkit and your example. So in terms of asking participants, like when they sign up and then they say, what should I do? Or you're thinking about what should I ask participants to do? This is kind of a laundry list of those types of things, right? You start by making a donation to yourself, make it personal. That was something that Callie and I, when we were talking last week, was, something that really came out in that conversation with, between us and with Stephen, who runs their program, who she hired recently this last and really helped grow the program this last year was getting people to, when they update their page and actually share their personal story, how much of a difference that makes. And then, like we say, ask kind of everywhere, in person, in emails, on social. One thing that really came out of the conversation too, which I liked, was, sharing your story, sharing your goal, and holding yourself accountable. So that's one thing that we talked about with those, especially with those fundraising rock stars, that they get competitive, and so once they put it out there, it's hard to not do it, right? Kelly, do you have anything else to add to this list? We also talked about doing handwritten thank you notes, not aside from sending the email or the text back saying, hey, thanks for donating, like actually sitting down and writing and sending someone a handwritten note in the mail.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of encourage all of our fundraisers to do is, their donor's going to get something from us, but when it comes down to it, that donor probably doesn't care as much about CASA as they do about their friend. And so, they may never give to us again, except for this event next year if this person happens to do it again. And so I think that having that personal touch and note is so important. So that's certainly something we encourage people to do, and give them creative ways to do that.
Awesome. Okay, so our top 3 takeaways, wrapping it up. First takeaway is social media active. Do not give or raise more often. But again, I think most of you are on the right pace with that poll of thinking like, yes, social engagement does make a difference, right? Because we did see that while maybe the frequency isn't more, or we can't tell yet that yet from our data sample, we do see that the amount is more. So they do give more in terms of dollars, and they raise more in terms of dollars. And superstar fundraisers play a really, really big role. So again, that's kind of like a top takeaway from, talking to Kelly and her team at CASA, and sort of validating things that we think are probably true. It sounds like they've had some really success with, looking at some of those key fundraisers who participate in their event year over year, and how much they've done to really nurture the relationships with those participants and those donors. Okay, well, we've got a little bit of time left. I want to give the opportunity to see if there are any additional questions in the questions box before we wrap it up. Please feel free to just type in your questions, and we can kind of stick around. I want to just give a really, really special thank you to Callie and her team at CASA. Thank you for participating in this. Thank you for being an amazing organization to work with. Really, really love working with you guys and talking to y'all and supporting you and what you're doing in your fundraising. Thank you to Jamie and the team over at LeadPup for embarking upon this study with us and doing all of the analysis and getting into the nitty-gritty of the numbers. If you want to reach out to any of us, here's our contact info. You can hit us up on the Twitter or shoot any of us an email. We're all happy to hear from you and take your questions and the like, post a webinar. But with that being said, are there any other questions? Kelly, you can let me know if there's any other questions that came in, or
we had a question. We did have a question about being able to locate the toolkit that Callie mentioned.
The link for that, because we're in the process of getting our site up for this coming year, so that one is not as obvious. But if you go to casasuperherorun.com/resources, that will take you to the kind of hidden link where we have our fundraising templates and the superhero guide to fundraising. So casasuperherorun.com/resources.
There you go. And I just typed it into the
everybody,
chat
that
box.
was just put in the chat box.
Yeah, I just typed that URL into the chat box. That's where you can go and download that.
Thank you.
Good deal. Well, hey, thank you so much. Like we said,
okay, we do have some other questions.
Yeah, other questions. Great.
We do, yes. Okay, what's an example of how the superstars mentor other people?
So that would be in kind of the blog posts that we set up is that, if you'll look on our website and if you actually go to that resources page, you'll see all of the blog posts we've done, but we ask them for their tips. What is your personal process for it, so that when we're emailing with our other fundraisers, we can share those. Hey, check out what, Stephen is doing or what this person is doing. So that's our kind of way of sharing that information, as opposed to kind of a personal mentorship.
Okay, and another question about social media. How often do you advertise the superhero run on social?
So we probably advertise it as we're getting close to, we're going to start advertising it, in April or May for a September event. And, we'll not do it too often at that point, but as we start getting into June, July, August, it's probably going to start, every 2 weeks in June that we're going to mention it on social media. In July, August, possibly every week, as we have blog posts and different resources to share. And actually, once it hits August, September, we're going to be sharing a lot. We have been big fans of finding, now since we're in Austin and we have a Facebook branch here, finding people who work at Facebook and are willing to donate advertising dollars, which is one of my favorite things about Facebook employees. And so we'll kind of go crazy with Facebook ads and lots of stuff on Twitter with the hashtag superhero run, so that, as we're getting to the end, we're getting really creative on a very regular basis with our social media posts and our emails, and we have fun with our themes of everything. So, last year we actually did an entire email based on Guardians of the Galaxy, where Rocket Raccoon was translating what Groot was saying about fundraising. So we try to be thematic and funny, and we do a lot of stuff on a pretty regular basis once we hit August and September and those months coming up to the race.
Thanks. That's a really helpful tip about the Facebook advertising. There's one more question, and it's about if you're able to share stories about the children you serve on social.
That is a tough one for us. We do have confidentiality issues because we work with Child Protective Services. So the stories that we share as an organization about any kids that we serve are always going to be closed cases that have usually been closed for a little while, or we share sort of moments of a case as opposed to a full story with an outcome, more of like, here's this cool thing that a volunteer did for a kid, or this cool thing that a kid accomplished, but we often de-identify them in pretty intensive ways. And so anything that doesn't change the nature of the kind of role the volunteer played, we will change. So we might change the gender of a kid, or the number of siblings in a group, or locations, etc., beyond just names, so that we can de-identify things, because confidentiality is a huge priority for us. And story that's ongoing could actually affect our cases and affect our clients, and so we're very cautious about how we tell kids stories.
Okay. And then I've had a couple of questions come in just regarding the slideshow and recorded presentation. And yes, those will both be emailed out after the webinar or early tomorrow morning. So you should expect to get that in your inbox.
All right.
And that is all of the questions, Taylor.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. That puts us right at just 2 minutes. We will give you all 2 minutes back in your day. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you again so much to Jamie and to Callie. And keep an eye out on your inbox, and we will send you that recording shortly. Thanks so much, guys.